welcome everyone. My name is Faith. Some of you already know me as the founder of AFMStories. Basically, AFMStories is dedicated to creating success stories using education, and we do this through a mix of media types. So we create content on YouTube, on social media, and we also share educative content and interview scholars like Chuks, who have done amazing things, and I've gone on to break barriers and break boundaries. Anyways, today is another one of such sessions, and we're going to be interviewing Chuks, learning about his journey. Lots of people have this dream. It's basically living a dream of a lot of people, He's looking all fresh and fly. We can see that being abroad is really giving him skin gold. Anyways, so we're going to be learning from his journey. He won a graduate assistantship to the USA, I think Kent State University. But anyways, you're going to tell us all about that. Anyways, I'm excited. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get updated on more videos like this, and keep watching to learn. All right, Chuks, how are you feeling today? How you look very excited. So America is really giving you all the vibes, and I think it's all that you wanted. So how are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm excited. Of course, I'm fine, but I'm excited. I'm more excited because I get to be on your YouTube channel and in your sessions. Because this is like I've blown. Right, like
why are you lying?
No, it's true. I've blown like AFM. So thank you very much for having me here, and thank you, Combat. I understand it's Combat that recommended me. So we'll see how that goes today. But yes, thank you very much. I'm excited to hear, and like you rightly said, this is a dream for so many people, and I hope that they get to live their dreams as well pretty soon.
Okay. All right, I'm excited about that, and I'm sure that everyone watching this or live in this Zoom session are also excited to learn from you. I know how difficult the journey is, trying to figure out how to win scholarships, getting confused, so many complicated information online. Sometimes you feel like the information is too much. But having somebody in front of you who has gone through the process successfully, I think it's a good thing to have. So my first question for you really is, you are in the USA, fully funded, living the dream of a lot of people. So a few years ago, did you think that you were going to be in this situation, studying the course that you love, in the school that you're studying, in the country that you are? And if you obviously knew, what do you think led you to this place? So how are your experiences or the things that have happened in your life from that moment to now? How have they shaped you arriving in this place?
Yeah, thank you very much, Faith. To start with, did I think I was going to be doing this program? Yes, I did think I was going to be doing this program for a PhD, for my doctoral degree. However, I did not know that I was going to be doing this program here in this university, or even in the US, right? So initially when I started looking out for graduate positions, I actually started with my master's, but then that didn't work out. And as we go on with the conversation, you'll get to know more about that. But I started working for the UK or towards the UK, and that didn't work out, both for master's and PhD. Yeah, and not just the UK, I tried Canada. So I'm one of those people that tried Canada, UK, Australia, South Africa, everywhere. And we're just getting back-to-back rejection emails, right? And then eventually I started looking at the US, and so this worked out. So I wouldn't say I thought that this was going to be a possibility up until maybe 2018, when I said, okay, fine, I was going to take the GRE and see how the US works out. But definitely the rejection. So the flip side of the rejection is that I think I got to learn from experience what not to do when applying, and pretty much what to do. I would have preferred if it was shorter, if the learning curve was shorter, right? But then, yes, those rejections sort of helped me to get the experience that I have now. And
well, I feel like it's becoming a recurrent theme actually with a lot of scholars here, sharing about like the many rejections, and seeing them as growing pains. So I'm sure there are people watching this and they've been rejected several times. They have, aspired for things and it didn't work out, but there's someone here right now that was rejected as well, but he's already living the dream. So you can use it as a source of motivation for yourself. Like, yes, I've been rejected, but it doesn't mean that I will not get a scholarship. So I like that you shared that. I want to actually ask you, because I know you're doing your PhD, right? So I don't know if you had a master's in between or if you got your PhD directly.
Okay, yeah. So I did mention earlier that so after my BSc in Nigeria, I started looking for a master's position in the UK. But then that didn't work out, and so I was like, okay, well, I sort of got admission. No, I actually got admission, but I just didn't get funding. You know the whole story with the UK and funding. So since I didn't have the money at the time to go for a master's, like to pay through a UK master's, I went ahead to finish up my master's in Nigeria. And then so I actually had a master's in Nigeria, and then I resumed my search for a PhD. Okay,
so your BSc degree is in what course?
Geology. So I had my BSc in geology, geology and mineral science, and then I went for a master's in geology, in applied geology really, and I focused in geochemistry. And now I'm running a PhD towards a doctoral degree in geology or applied geology, and I'm focusing still in geochemistry.
Okay, talk about consistent focus. Okay. What? Actually, the first person I'm interviewing actually that has like the same course like all through. So I think that's really interesting. I like that. That's a different perspective. But do you think that people that don't have that kind of background would be disadvantaged? So for example, for people that maybe their BSc and their masters are two different courses, would it affect them for a PhD in, let's say, their dream course or something different from what they studied before?
Frankly, I don't think so. Interestingly, it's interesting that you said it's the consistency, because one of the things I had to battle with is if truly I wanted to remain in STEM. Okay, because on the other, there's this part of my life that's focused on human capacity building, and if I actually focus on mental health. Okay, and so one of the biggest struggles for me has been trying to and thinking about how can I bring in my passion for mental health into what I do for academics. And I struggled with this even before I went for my master's, and even when I was working towards my PhD. And till now, I'm still thinking about how can I incorporate what I do in the mental health space to what I'm doing currently at the PhD level. But yes, to answer your question, I think it could work either way, because it really depends on how different these degrees are, right? And what story they can tell to connect the degree. Because at the end of the day, when you apply, it's about you telling a story. And so would the committee like your story? Can they relate to your story? Do they believe your story has a place in their own larger picture, if I may put it that way? And so if you can connect what you did for a BSc, what you did for a master's, to what you hope to do for a PhD, I want to believe that will work. And then again, there are some PhD degrees or PhD programs rather that are not, I want to say that they're not stringent, they're not just fixed. Okay, so they can collect people from different places. I have a friend who is running a PhD in public health, right? And he didn't have he didn't have an MPH. Well, he had an MPH anyway. He had to go back to get an MPH, that's Masters in Public Health. But then he pretty much his BSc was very, very different. I think BSc was something in the arts, if I'm not, or social science, if I'm not mistaken. But then he was able to go back for an MPH, I think, or something like that, or maybe mathematics or statistics, and then he was able to go back for MPH, and then now he's running a PhD in public health. And so and of course he can tell the story of how statistics is relevant to public health. Okay, yes, and I can just imagine many ways you can tell that story as well. So I think it really depends on how well can you tell the story, how well can you link, and you can always link it, right? Like, I feel like education, we are just the ones that ended up breaking education into different subjects. And so if you can get a problem and explain how your knowledge from your former degree can contribute to you solving this problem right now in this new degree, you would always, or you are most likely going to get the position. That's what I believe, and we've seen many people do that. Yeah,
I agree with that, definitely. I just found it very interesting, because usually people tend to bring up that, bringing lessons from previous degree or their experiences to make up for maybe their undergraduate or master's not being related. So it's lovely to see. Before I further question you on some of these things, I feel like there are people here that might not know, the difference between assistantships and scholarships, right? So you could just briefly differentiate it for us. So for those that need clarity, like, what's the major difference between assistantships and scholarships?
So I want to say that. So I want to say broadly that assistantship, fellowships, scholarships, they're all some kind of funding. Okay, there's some kind of funding, and maybe broadly or loosely, we just call them scholarships. But then, of course, they are different in the sense that when you're talking about fellowship, of course, it's talking about a different thing. But let me focus on assistantship, like your question said. And for assistantship, in my case, you are going to be working, okay? Whereas if you're just going to receive a fellowship, like say one of these other fellowships or common scholarships that come, maybe national scholarships, like from Nigeria, there's some national scholarships that come up every year and all that, where no additional work is expected from you after they've given you the funding. So, okay, they brought out the list, you qualify, we're going to sponsor your master's, we're going to sponsor your PhD for 4 years, and you don't worry, we'll send stipends to you every month, we'll pay your fees every year, and that's that. Nothing is required from you. You don't need to show up at work, you don't need to fulfill any other requirement. I would call that fellowship, some kind of fellowship, some kind of scholarship in the broad sense of it. But as for assistantship, you are required to work for either the university or the department, depending on where you're reporting to. And that's pretty much what it is. So you are a graduate assistant, which means literally you are assisting as a graduate student, right? So if you could, and that's pretty much in about, there are different expressions of it. We have graduate assistants that are teaching. We have graduate assistants that are just in the research space. And then we have graduate assistants that work as admin officers. And so if I want to explain this to persons who might not be familiar, I would usually want to use the university setting in Nigeria, where we have non-teaching staff. We have a lot of non-teaching, we have a lot of non-teaching staff. And even though we have non-academic staff here in the States, we also have a lot of graduate students that do the job of non-teaching staff in Nigeria. And so things like maybe a program officer for a department, for a unit in school, or maybe there's just some programs that are being run, and you have them employ or give graduate students this position and tell them, hey, see, for this academic year, you'll be the one running the program. You'll be this unit is pretty much it's under you, and so you want to ensure that these are your deliverables. You get them done, and then you report to whoever is in charge of that of the bigger body. And in return, what they do for you is they give you a school fees waiver, a tuition waiver, and it really depends on for some persons they give tuition waiver, some persons they give they also give some kind of health insurance waiver, they pay your health insurance. Sometimes they just pay percentage of it, and they also give you monthly stipend, right? So that's like pretty much what the basic package is. There are some schools that do amazingly well and than others. Yeah, but then for teaching assistants, so for graduate teaching assistants, so instead of instead of being in charge of a unit, you're probably teaching undergrads. Mostly you're teaching undergrads, or you are assisting a professor in a course. And so you pretty much just, especially for practical courses where you have knowledge, and then you're just going table by table, checking out the students to make sure, okay, they are doing the right thing, answering questions. And usually for large classes, you find graduate teaching assistants. And then for graduate research assistants, for graduate research assistants, you are most likely just going to be focused on the research part of the job. And typically you just attached to a lab. I'm saying lab because I'm in STEM, but there are graduate research assistants that are not in STEM, and so they just work hand in hand with a professor that's probably researching, and so they go with the professor to the field to collect data, work on the data, write manuscripts, and all that. So I know that's pretty much a lot. It could be here and there, but
So which of these are you currently?
Also, currently I am a graduate teaching assistant.
Okay.
So I get to teach. Yeah.
And how is the experience like for those of us here interested in graduate teaching assistantships?
Well, frankly, it's humbling. It's humbling because it's humbling getting to be in the position to impact knowledge, and knowing that if these people don't learn this thing, it's your problem, it's your fault, right? And you pretty much become the guy that was standing in front of you some 10 years ago or some 5 years ago, you understand, trying to impact knowledge. And so for me it's been humbling, but also been revealing. So after I did it the first semester, because now I'm my second year, so after I did it the first semester of my first year, I just started vibing. I wouldn't say all that, but then I started vibing into it, and a little bit of confidence here and there. Yeah. Plus, I kind of have a teaching experience from Nigeria, so it helps.
So, is it possible for you to choose which of them that you want, or is it in the adverts that you know what the position is for? So, for people that maybe are leaning more towards teaching or research or admin, how do they find out which of the which of the facets is available?
Go for it. Yeah. Okay. So this is how it is. This especially for the US, and I'm speaking on a general note now, especially for the US, graduate assistantship or graduate teaching and research assistantship come mostly with the package of admission, with the admission package. So when almost all students, not all, but almost all students that come into the States on funding come with graduate assistantship. That's almost all graduate students that come to the States for their graduate program come with
both for masters and PhD for the US.
Oh yes. So for masters, for master students too can be graduate research or teaching assistants as well. Yeah, they could get graduate assistantships as well. So yes, so almost all students that actually come with this with this kind of assistantship, and so usually it's at the point of admission. So mostly it's at the point of application. You get to apply, and then they get to consider your application. Sometimes hold interviews with such a person, and then they give admissions. For some departments, they give admissions, and then they go ahead to consider such a person for graduate teaching assistantships or graduate research assistantships. Yeah. So although for graduate research assistantship, it's very, very popular to get that through the advisors, and I'm sure as we get to converse more, everything I'm saying here will become a little bit clearer, because if I'm meant to take it step by step, I would say after application, right, or at the point of searching.
I think we should actually go through it step by step, right? So because I feel like I just realized that we're talking as if these people already know it. So from the beginning, right, From what you're saying, what I can get is majority of international students that study PhD and masters in the US with funding are most often graduates, research and teaching assistants. I think I've been saying that on Twitter a lot. So is that what you're also saying? Like that's the trend? Okay, so if you want to study in the USA, there's a high chance that your best bet for funding is graduate assistantships, right? I know there are scholarships, but some of them are like automatic considerations and it's a whole ball game. But today we're focusing on the most popular one, which is graduate assistantships, right? So what's the first, how do people find out about it? Like where do they find the adverts or the listing? Where do they find it? Is it on the school's website? Are there special websites to find it? Like how do they find out about this opportunity? I think we should start with that first.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay, so to find out about it, I usually tell people that the first place to start is to get admission first, because the way it works is that you need admission. It's only the admitted person. It's only at the point of admission that you become a graduate student, and then when you become a graduate student, then you can now become a graduate assistant. Right. So the first thing would be get admission. And so how do you get admission? It's pretty much by looking into this is the way I usually tell people to go about it. To go ahead, make a list of schools that you want to apply to. They are pretty much there's a broad classification. I call them safe schools versus ambitious schools. And so ambitious schools would be, there's this list of best universities here, like Harvard. And I mean, those are very possible. We've got friends that are in those schools doing amazingly well. Yeah. And it's very possible. But again, it's very competitive, right? And so I wouldn't advise anyone to just put their eggs in a basket. And so apply for or check out safe schools, but also check out ambitious schools, but also check out safe schools, because just like ambitious schools, safe schools also have these fundings they are looking for. Yeah. And so when you have a list, then you have to go to these universities one after the other and check, since they're offering your program, to go to their website. I usually like to emphasize that in this part of the world, the website actually works. I know I know, like it sounds trivial, but it's true. Like it's like, when I was applying, I was like, God, it actually works. It's actually updated. Like it's a duty of someone to update their website. Like they actually update their website, right? And so they respond. So you can trust the information that you get from there, right? And so go to the department's website and just navigate your way to where you have the faculty or the staff, and then you want to check the names. You see the faculty members. Most of the time, they come with their pictures and all that, and so you check their concentration. What are they researching on? Normally, you should be able to click on their name. It's clickable, or there'll be a website, and when you click on their names or website, it takes you to the individual page of that professor or that faculty member. Now, on the individual page of that faculty member, some of those faculty members have individualized or personalized websites, right? Or what they call their lab website or something, where if you click there, you'll be able to read everything they do in the lab, what the research questions are, what what publications they pushed out recently. In fact, sometimes you get to see who their current students are, and sometimes their pictures are there, and then even the students who graduated before, right? And then some of them haven't go the extra length of saying, hey, see, I'm accepting students for the next fall, right? Wow. And so just email me. And so some of them do this. And so what you want to do is to go to this website and just read up. If you read and what they're working on relates to you, or that's the person you want to work with, just start it. Just write down their name somewhere, and then you do that for all the universities that you're interested in, and then you start sending emails to these people. And I'll explain why you want to do this. You start sending emails to them, what people call cold mails. So you send them, you introduce yourself pretty much. And I mean, I'm sure maybe there's a session or maybe there's a video that covers cold mails, but then you send cold mails to...
You can talk about it just briefly.
Oh, okay, yeah. So pretty much what cold mails are, they're just a very brief introduction about yourself, expressing your interest to work with the lab, right? And so you're telling them, hey, hi, I'm so person from Nigeria or like from wherever. You explain, you mention your degree, right? Okay. Or what your highest degree. Normally, that's what I would do. You mention your highest degree. If you have a very strong CGPA, you could mention it, just to grab their attention. If you've written GRE already, you should, and you have a very proud score, you should put it there. It's going to get their attention as well. Just to flaunt that, because again, it's a cold mail. They get these mails every day. So you want to make sure that you're memorable, right? So just put your strong foot forward, and then you tell them that you're interested in applying for the next admission circle, and you were wondering if you could, if they're considering having, if he or she is considering having an extra student in their lab for the coming fall, or you're interested in them supervising, just something around that line. Of course, you can have it edited and all that stuff before sending it. Yeah, so you pretty much send a cold mail and be patient. So normally I would say wait for 48 hours or wait for 48 hours to 1 week before sending a reminder, right? Because most times you wouldn't get a response, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes you get rejection, which, I mean, if you get a rejection email, that's even that's closure for you. I mean, so you can move to the other person in that department. But then the reason you're probably not going to get a response isn't always because they are snubbing you. It's actually because there's a lot of there are a lot of emails that come into their box every other day, right? And so even for me as a graduate student, sometimes I just step out of my desk and I come back and I see like just a whole lot of emails, and I'm like, what am I? Like it messes up with me, and I'm to have deadlines and all that. And some people just skim through. If there isn't any important email, like what I mean important, any recognizable email, like say from if I don't see, well, me, I read all my emails, but I know people who probably will just look, they don't see the advisor's name, they don't see any of their boss's name, they just click on all read, all right? And so it just assumes that you've read all the emails, so just clears off like that. But so that's why you want to send a reminder after maybe a week, so that they're like, okay, all right, so this is a conversation, I need to respond to this person, that kind of thing. Also, time difference. So right now we have 5 hours. America, where I am in America, is 5 hours behind Nigeria, right? There are some places that are currently 8 hours behind Nigeria, right? So what you want to do is find out where you're emailing to, what is the time difference, and try to send emails in the morning. Like, so I would normally just say between 9 to 11 a.m. their time, wherever you're applying to. So that might mean you send emails towards the evening or something like that. But you could always, with Gmail these days, you can actually schedule your emails and they just go exactly that time. So that time, they're usually in front of their system. And so they get to see the email popping and they're like, oh, what is this? And yeah, there's a stronger chance of you having a response, okay, compared to if you just send emails in the middle of the night and then you're just waking up and they're just seeing emails like, I mean, you just freak out. Honestly, it's not cool. Yeah, so that's important for you to do. What else? Am I missing anything else? Yeah, so I would say that persons should just watch out for that. So let's assume that yes, you've gotten a response now, you've started a conversation with the faculty you're interested in, what you're going for, is for him or her to say, hey, say, yes, I'm interested in you, go ahead and apply. That's where you are praying and hoping that the conversation leads to, right? And so once you've gotten your reply that, hey, okay, they start asking you questions, that's where you should start kabashing, right? Because you've pretty much done your job. You've toasted the person has now started giving you face. Okay, so that's and that's what you want, right? And so when you now apply, at that point, you're just being hopeful, and so they go ahead, they consider your application, and then most universities or most departments, some departments, let me not say most, some departments will consider your application together with the GA, with the assistantship, position. So they'll be like, okay, we can give you admission, but there's no GA position. So therefore, you're rejected.
Wow.
Do you understand? Yeah. But but they might not make it, they might not even give you, they might not state all that to you. Some people, some departments would say, okay, we have GA, we can give admission, but there isn't any available GA position in our department. And so you have the option to accept. I mean, you could accept it. It means that you have to now go ahead and start looking for GA positions, and this will be the admin positions you get around school. So maybe sending emails to the graduate school or the international office to say, hey, see, can I apply? Can I apply for any GA position? Is there any GA position I can apply to? Or networking with people, Nigerians or indigenous people who are in the school to say, hey, see, do you know if I can get employment within the campus and all that and all that stuff, or pretty much looking out for other faculty that have funding in their lab, okay, who might want to take you in as a research assistant, right? So pretty much, I normally would say just get the admission, and then it's easier to look for funding when you have admission than to be looking for both of them at the same time. And sometimes it's just impractical to get funding without admission, except you're talking about the NDDC kind of and the other kind of funding that comes from the national side. Yeah, so normally I would say focus on getting admission first, and when you get admission, then you would normally either get a prompt to apply for funding, or normally they'll just consider you directly for funding, like that. I don't know, have I done justice to that question?
Yeah, I actually want to zoom in on something, obviously, because you're already there and you kind of have experience also from your own personal experience and from interacting with other graduate assistants. What would you say is the eligibility criteria? So for example, is it that more people with first class get it, or more people with 2-1 get it, or is the GRE scores, are they the most important? Because obviously there are people that might be checking themselves to say, okay, how can I boost up my backgrounds? Maybe I don't have a first class, or I don't have a 2-1. What can I do to boost it up? Or, I have a first class. Am I good at my game? I just want to zoom in on the specific grades. Some people even go ahead to recommend grades. The last person we interviewed about graduate assistantships, I think he mentioned that you need 300 in GRE. But the point is what do you think about the specifics of it? So can somebody with a high grade or I just want you to talk on that for people here who are reviewing their own backgrounds and documents.
Okay, thank you. So when I was preparing for this, I wanted to come with one. I wanted to leave anybody that listens or watches this video with one thing in mind, is that there isn't only one way, and it is very fluid. There isn't only one way, and I'll tell you why. I'll shock you. Well, maybe not shock you because it's common these days, but then I'll tell you why. There isn't one way. There are very helpful people out there, and it's a good thing you're doing this, because you're getting people with different experiences, and then people get to watch a series of videos, and then they see that there's truly not one way. Because when I mentioned earlier that I wrote GRE in 2018, but what I didn't mention is that I didn't get admission in 2018. Okay, so I didn't get admission in 2018. I got admitted in 2020. As well, okay. So I got admitted in 2020, and I didn't use my GRE to get admitted because at that time GRE was waived.
Oh, right. Okay.
So yeah, and so there are a number of schools that right now have waived GRE. Okay, so you could actually come in without GRE. The same thing with TOEFL and IELTS and the English test. Usually, the schools that really insist on TOEFL and English proficiency exams these days are like I mentioned earlier, the ambitious schools. Those schools that have a lot of people coming in, and so these exams are even now more of a way to streamline the number of persons that get to apply. And so because a lot of people are not writing GRE anymore or don't want to write GRE anymore because it's expensive and all that, right? So the only people that get to apply will be those that are willing to write or can afford rather to write GRE, right? So that's a way to reduce. So again, there isn't only one way. And so to qualify for graduate assistantship, frankly, I would say that it's a need-based thing, and even though you should have a good grade, you are more likely to get. Yeah, sorry, I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
Yeah, you're more likely to get a GA-ship or even admitted when you go through what I just listed out previously. So it's like this: when you start conversing with the professor or the faculty member, the person you hope would advise you, when you start conversing with that person, the person is already telling you what the lab is like. The person is already telling you what the questions, what the research questions are like, what the procedures are like, and then you're telling the person what you can do, what you are willing to learn, and maybe you understand there's that interaction already. Your leg is already almost inside. You get, compared to somebody who has maybe first class, has 300 and all that, and did not contact any faculty member. You get, and that person goes ahead to apply. You get, this person might have already, if this person has really promised you and said, hey, okay, yeah, I will supervise you, I'm interested, I want to work with you. Oh, really? You can do this, you can do that. I want to work with you. That person who probably is good, all right, but that does not have, especially for departments that make it compulsory or that advise that, hey, make sure you have a faculty willing to supervise you before you apply, because there's some departments that make that very clear. Reach out to a faculty before you apply. So for that person that's reached out, that person has a stronger chance of being admitted than someone else who has not reached out, right? And so there are many ways around it. On the flip side, you could have reached out and not gotten any positive response, or even no response at all from the faculty, and then you just go ahead and apply because you have a good result. And when the department sees your result, that, oh my God, this person is good, you should give him admission, even if you don't have funding, and they give you admission, even if they have funding, and then you get funded later. So there isn't one way. That this can happen. A good score is very important. I mean, a 300 for GRE would pretty much guarantee you. Guarantee you.
Your chances.
I'm careful to say guarantee, but would increase your chances like substantially. Yeah, but also being. Say again?
Or you can get it without GRE.
Oh yes, you can get it without GRE, and you can get it with even lower GRE scores. Yeah, I know people who've gotten the lower GRE scores. It doesn't mean they're not smart or anything. I mean, we all know the exam is not the true test of knowledge, right? And you are going for a research-based program. A PhD is a research-based. You probably not write so many exams. You're writing more essays and all that, right? So we know how this thing goes. Yeah. So if you can get a GRE, why not? Get a GRE. It increases your chances of application. It also increases your chances of selection and all that. But it doesn't really there's no guarantee per se. You actually have to play all the balls together. You have to reach out and and yeah.
From everything you've said, I think that the most important actually is getting assurance from a faculty member. I think
Yes.
that's the most important thing. So that should be where you should focus your efforts on, writing the perfect cold email, building yourself to ensure that you align with maybe their interest and you're able to promote yourself adequately. I hope I said what you said in the right way. Anyway, so that the first thing is reach out to the person, get admission. Okay, after you get admission, what do you actually need to get admission? I also want to ask that, especially for PhDs. So what are the kind of things you submit? Do you submit like research proposals? Like what exactly are the documents required?
Okay, yeah, perfect. Thank you. That's a very important question. What you have to submit for PhD, and yeah, PhD. Let's focus on PhD. Would be, so before I say that, I want to just throw in that in the US it's very popular for some programs to just move from BSc to a PhD.
I was about to ask.
Yeah. So I mean, and the reason you should do that, you should consider doing that, especially if you have a very good result. If you have a very good result, the reason you should consider doing that is because you do not like most STEM courses, especially if it's a STEM course. Most STEM courses are more willing to sponsor a PhD program than a master's program. Okay, so you should consider that if you like, if you have PhD in your bucket list, right? I mean, if you want to go in the industry, yeah, why not do a master's? But then, if you eventually plan to do a PhD, you might as well just start today, right? Yeah.
Oh wait, PhD that's actually really interesting because it's something I've seen come up, and a lot of the questions actually from people that registered also asked about that. So they don't really mind. Is that what you're saying? That you don't have masters?
Yes. So just some programs, not all programs, right? So and again, when I mean some programs, so some programs in some universities. So this thing that's the beauty about it, because some universities will accept. In fact, right in my university, there are some departments that would say, yeah, just come BSc, PhD, great. But then there are some departments that say, hey, so you have to do a master's first, right? So yeah, but again, it really depends. You need to read through what the guidelines are for each department you're looking to apply to. Yeah, but yes, it's very possible. There are a lot of people doing that. They're just moving from BSc to PhD. It's very, very common in.
Yes, USA, guys.
Yeah, it's more like 4-5 years. But yeah.
Exactly. And for those of you that want to jackpot, I want to relocate. So you should not think about PhD. Anyways, so the requirements, because I feel like we've debated.
Oh yeah. So for the requirements, what you need, you do not need. Also, unlike the UK and maybe some parts of Europe, that would require a research proposal, right? Most universities here, in fact, I've not seen any that require a proposal. I mean, they could ask for a writing sample. Right, they could ask for a writing sample, but that's not a proposal. Right, that's not a proposal. Yeah, so they've taken the load of you, they've taken the burden of you trying to get a research topic, or like to coin out a research topic and all that stuff that UK and Europe would make you do. They've taken away from you. All you need to do is pretty much just look for that lab, because the lab, that's an interesting thing, right? And that's why the funding is interesting, because the lab you're going to, they already have research questions they're trying to answer, and and those questions are being funded. That's where the money comes from, right? So they're already funded, so they just need you to key into it most of the times, right? Most of the times. So you do not need in most cases, at least that I know of. I've not seen any yet that need you to submit a research proposal. You would not need to. So pretty much it's just, I would say, your CV, an updated CV, an updated academic CV, right? And
academic CV. True. They have to break it down for us here, like we're babies, like we don't know anything. So, what should be in the academic CV?
Well, so for an academic CV, I would expect that to pretty much. So, and this is the difference, right? If you're applying for a work, depending on maybe you're applying to work at a bank or something, it might not be relevant to put to include how many conferences you've attended recently, and like attended or presented at rather recently. Might not be relevant to put in how many reports or comprehensive reports you've written or you worked on and all that, or how many papers you've published. But for an academic CV, you want to put that because that's actually what makes you like more appealing to whoever is going to look at it, right? So that's, for me, that's like, I think that's the biggest thing that you want to put in. That's your academic, you want to make sure it's reflecting your academic history. And or your research history, not just academic history, no, your research history. What have you been doing within the academia? And all that. And it's fine. And exactly good. Yeah, right. And so it's fine. And it's fine if you've not, right? It's fine if you've not. I think because apparently you can't lie, or you shouldn't lie. Everybody can lie. You shouldn't lie, but you should. In that case, I mean, since you probably going for a graduate program, that means you're written your BSc project, right? So I think you should include that. If you attended a conference where you presented that stuff, you should include it. If it's been published, great. You should include it, even if it's just one paper, right? You should include it. There are people that you would meet in graduate school who have never published anything before, right? And so it surely gives you an upper hand if you can include it. But then you don't want to
have like relevant professional experiences, so maybe they're not like in the academic field, but they are related to like the course. Can you also include that?
Yes, definitely. Yes, because it's relevant. So if you are coming to study geology and then you've spent the last couple of years or maybe a couple of months or had an internship with a geoscience firm or like doing stuff, yes, definitely put it, because at least you have the experience, you have the skills that you might be able to transfer into your research.
Okay. So aside from academic CV, what else do we need? Reference letter, personal statement. Okay, let me not put words into your mouth.
It's fine. So typically you're going to need your CV, you will need your transcript. And just to speak about transcript, most of the schools here would accept your your temporary, like the unofficial transcript, just until you get admission, and then they're going to request for the official transcript. So yes, so you can bring in, you can just make sure you have your temporary, at least your transcript. Then they'll ask for reference letters. Normally it's about 3.
Wow.
Between 2 or 3 thereabout, depending on the school. I haven't seen 4 before, but yes, but around 2 or 3. And then some of the schools, it really differs. Some of them would have the option for you to put to upload it, or they'll just ask you for the email address of whoever you want to recommend you, and then they send a direct email to the person, and the person gets to refer you, right? And then so you need the reference letter, you need your academic CV, you need your I just mentioned something. Then you need your SOP.
SOP, okay.
Yeah, you need the SOP. They will definitely ask for SOP. It could come in different ways. Sometimes they ask for research statement. And so yes, there's a difference between research statement and then between research statement, there's difference between that and SOP, that's statement of purpose. So pretty much for personal statement or statement of purpose, you are selling yourself. You are more or less selling, it's more like, tell us about yourself and why this degree is important to you, or why the degree is important to you, or your dreams, or for your future, your plans for the future. And then tell us also about how your experiences in the past have sort of prepared you for this journey you're looking to undertake. So just think about it like this, and that's pretty much what you're going to write there. It's more technical than that, but yeah, but then you will need to just simplify it like that in your head, and then you write it down. You should definitely not write it 2 days before it is due. Yeah, you should not. You should write it a couple of weeks before. In fact, you could write it over a couple of weeks. So you could take it. I've seen people who advise that, hey, take it a paragraph by paragraph thing. And so you say, okay, I'll focus on this paragraph today. I'll spend the next 2 hours trying to fix this paragraph, and then I'll move to the next paragraph. And I think about 3-4 paragraphs, depending on how much you want to cover. And then you send it to your friends who, or your FTWA friends that, yeah, and the ones that know how to criticize writings and all that. Then you also want to send it to, if you've got friends in graduate school in the US, right? You want to send it to them, and they might see something that that others didn't see, right? And then they would, from grammar to even the technicality of what you're doing, and then people that know you, so they're like, oh, you didn't mention this, don't you think you should have mentioned this, check it, and all that stuff. So I would say you need a couple of weeks to work on the personal statement. And people trivialize it most times. People think it's like that's not, but remember that this person doesn't know you. Whoever is going to read that, they don't know you, and if there's a grammatical error, they probably think you're clumsy, right? If there's an exaggeration, they'll think you're a liar, right? What if the person that's reading it is someone that just came back from sabbatical in Africa, in Nigeria, okay, and pretty much knows that what you're saying is a lie? What if the person has 4 Nigerian students, okay, in his or her lab, and then they're saying stuff and it's like, so you want to take time to be honest, optimistic, and very thorough in writing your personal statement. Yeah. So I'm just thinking about it. I think that's pretty much for my what you would need. I mean, GRE, if you can, you should, right? You should write it. Typically, I think you need, I'm not a GRE expert, but I know that you need at least 6 weeks to prepare for GRE. 6 weeks just because, 6 weeks to prepare for GRE. Some people say they've written in 4 weeks. Yeah, those guys are genius. But we normal people need 6 weeks. Okay. Yeah, so we normal people need 6 weeks to prepare for GRE. And it's just important because it's you shouldn't just up and write GRE. You'll be embarrassed because it's a lot to just get ready for, right? No matter how smart you think you are, please take some time to prepare for GRE. I think then the IELTS and TOEFL. For me personally, I do not believe that. I'm part of those people that believe that you should not write any English proficiency exam because you speak English, and your language of instruction throughout your life has been English. So, what I've seen people do before, for me, I wasn't asked about it at all, right? So, but there was one school in the US that I was trying to apply to. I ended up not applying there, but they asked for TOEFL, and I had to send an email to the graduate coordinator, and I told him, hey, see, my language of instruction has always been English, and I could send you my WAEC results to show that I passed English, right? Or I could get a letter from my university that states my language of instruction for the past couple of years have been English, right? So I asked him to let me know which of them to send, right? And because I don't think I need to write a TOEFL exam and all that. I was kind of more polite than that, but yeah. So, but yes, but I don't think people should write TOEFL and IELTS. But if you want to go ahead and write it to increase your chances, why not go ahead and write it? But if not, try to get a letter from your university. If you're, and I'm saying that because some person's WAEC certificate might be too old, right? But if it's not too old, you could use a WAEC certificate. But if it's, maybe you didn't get a very good score in WAEC, so you don't want to flop it. So why not just go ahead and get a letter from your school or your department that actually says, hey, see, so person is my student or was our student, and the language of instruction for the past 4 or 5 years was English language and all that. And I think that suffices. That spares you some money, and you can put the money to write GRE.
Okay, so thank you. So your references, they have to be academic, right? Every single one of them, or they can be a mix of both.
Yes. So you know how I would say they need to be relevant more than academic. Just like you know how you mentioned earlier that you could have a professional experience, and so I mean, if you've been working in I'm using geoscience again. So if you're working in a geoscience firm or your company, and the person there knows what it like, the person there's a professional, like your boss there knows, can vouch for you and like all that, he should definitely, or she should definitely write you a reference letter if you're comfortable with that. And then of course, if you are still in touch with professors, then they should also get to write. I mean, for me, at the time I applied, again, I think it's more of who can sell you well, because you do not want and I think it's important to mention, your professors should be they should be tech savvy, especially for those schools that are going to ask you to send emails. You don't want to go and put in people that don't check their emails or don't even know anything about emails, right? You don't want to do that, because it's frustrated people a lot. And that's the thing about your application. Once one person has not submitted, it's not complete. It's not complete. That stuff, you might have written the best application and everything, but just because one person is not available, your application cannot get submitted. And so that's something to pay attention to. It's best if you talk to them before you put them in, and then whoever you're talking to, make sure the person is tech savvy. The person knows their way around, knows their way around the computer and all the email stuff. I mean tech savvy. It's not serious. Like, just the person can send an email, all right, and the person can sell you well. The person needs to know you. So and I'm not, because I saw a very funny reference letter a while back, and the person said, the person said, I am so person, and so person is our student. So the person has requested that I write a reference letter for. I was like, no, that is wrong. You should not do that, because it means you don't like the person. Like, when you're happy, you should say, I'm pleased to write a reference letter to support this. Like, it should come. The person wrote it like, the reference letter didn't even speak about the person's ability to perform research or anything. It didn't touch any serious thing. Nothing. No personal touch. How did you meet the person? The reference letter didn't state that he or she was a student of the of the man and all that stuff. It's not right. It's not strong enough, right? It's not strong. You're competing with people that, I mean, the relationship over here, the relationship between the professor and the student, it's very strong. They know themselves very well, and so and these are people they are competing with, right? When they're writing reference letters, they're talking about how a simple conversation led to a good working relationship and all that stuff. And by the time you read the reference letter, you love the person already. Okay, you don't want to go with somebody that is just very complacent with, no matter how respectable the person is. All right, some people cannot just sell you. And so when I was when I was applying, I didn't even use a professor. Well, he wasn't a professor at the time. Now he's a professor, my evil Oga. But he was my supervisor, and he's like he's like a father to me, right? And so he knows me. He pretty much knows me well, and so he sold me well. I didn't read it, but I know he sold me well, because here I am. And then I also used two other younger doctors. So I knew they knew me well, because while they were on their PhD, I worked with them. I went to the field with them. We were in the bush together. Geologists go to the bush. We bonded well. We've attended conferences together. We volunteered together. We've done stuff together. So they know who Chuks is. They know my values. They know what I can do. you get, and all that. And even if they were young doctors, and like they were young, they just got their PhD maybe some 2-3 years before I asked them to write. They wrote, and it worked, right? So that's something to pay attention to, right? It's good to use big names. I mean, if you have big names that can sell you, why not go for it, right? But don't sacrifice big names for people that can sell you. Sorry, don't sacrifice people that can sell you for big names.
For big names, yeah.
Yes.
I think that's so important. I think that's so important because, like, in the beginning of my journey as well, I first used a professor in my uni, an emeritus professor, to write a letter for me, and he literally just wrote 2 lines. I'm not even kidding. Like, it was those kind of applications that you upload the references yourself, right? And I already told him this is what scholarship is about. I sent him the link, everything that they said. And he was so proud. He was like, don't worry, I wrote you something so good. You need to see it. And then I saw, Faith was the youngest in class, and she had a best class, and she was our best student. I think she will do well. Thank you. I was like, what? I was like, Sal, what's going on here? Like, what's this? What's happening? Imagine it was one of those applications that I can't even see the references, and he submitted it like that. That's it. These are people that are asking for detailed examples, detailed description. Exactly. How amazing you are. Like, everybody applying is amazing. So 2 lines is not going to cut it, right? So it has to be people that can. My subsequent applications, I had to use people that were not emeritus professors. I used even normal lecturers, not even lecturers like professors, doctors. I think I didn't even use any prof actually. It was just doctors. Like, I used an assistant lecturer and I used 2 lecturers. There was a particular lecturer that was just a regular lecturer, but he became head of department. So that even helped me eventually. But like, even in my professional examples as well, for my scholarship, I didn't even use my boss, like the CEO. I just used the head of my unit, and he was able to sell me well enough. So I don't think that, as long as it's not your friend or your family, as long as the person is not either an academic or professional or whatever capacity, and they don't write it like, you are besties, I think that it would work, right? So that's all for the application, right? So after we submitted, then we received the admission, then what is the next step?
Yeah, so after you submit the application, then you start praying for admission, and then you get the admission. Right, but then so some schools, after getting admission, some schools that don't automatically, or some departments that don't automatically consider you for graduate assistantship, would now send an email to say, okay, so apply for graduate assistantship, click on this, you get and apply. And sometimes, so that you aren't sure, it's fine to send an email to the graduate coordinator even before you have to apply. You get, so like if you have any question, feel free to send an email to the graduate coordinator. Each department has a graduate coordinator. Send an email to them, and they'll respond, because it's their job to respond. Do you understand? Like, unlike the professor that has a choice of not responding, right? They have to respond because it's part of the job for them to respond. So normally the graduate coordinator will respond. So that's one big hack you should use. Another hack, I'm sorry I'm deviating, I'll come back to your question so I just don't forget. Another thing I did was, when I discovered that I read this somewhere while I was searching for my for admission at the time, that they cherish references here, just like we've said already. They cherish references here, and so if you have, maybe if you attended a conference and you met someone that attended a particular university in the US, and then the person told you about a professor that taught him or her, and then you're like, okay, can I just use your name to apply or to send an email? And you're like, fine, yes. So you go ahead and say, hey, hi, I was at the conference, and I met James. James said you're an amazing PI or amazing advisor, and I'm interested. I'm looking forward to, I'm looking to apply for my PhD, blah, 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 blah. And I was wondering if you have, because there's a good relationship between that professor and James, he's more likely to look at you with favor, right, than other people. And so what I did was, I didn't have that. So I had to send an email to the admin secretary at the time, and I was like, yeah, I'm actually looking to get admission or to get looking to apply for the next session. I was wondering if you could let me know of faculties that are looking for students in this particular field in geochemistry towards the next session and all that. And she's like, okay, well, you could check out these faculties and all that. This one's just joined. They might be looking for students and all that. And I said, okay, fine. I just went with the first person she mentioned, and I was like, hey, see. So I chatted with Kelly, and Kelly said that you should do this, and that I should probably reach out to you, blah 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 blah. And he responded to me like evening, right, and all that. So yeah, so I that's what I did, and I think that you could also do that. You could probably do that. I mean, it might not be as smooth as this always, right? But you should always look out for that and all that. It could be someone you met on Twitter and all that stuff. That was an alumnus and all that. You just use that to the most important thing is just so I can get that first response. By the time you begin to reply your email, you are pretty much having a good time. Yeah. So okay. So back to your question, you're asking about remind me.
After you get the admission.
After you get admission, yeah. So some departments will not ask for any special application for graduate assistantship because they automatically consider you, but some will ask for a different application for graduate assistantship, and so you want to go ahead and like apply for that. Then normally it will be followed by.
What does the application involve?
So I'll have to confirm because for me I just got it like yeah. So but I'll have to confirm. But pretty much it's not as serious as you're not writing. You normally might not have to write an essay like how you were writing before. You pretty much, because now you've gotten the admission, you're just pretty much submitting your particulars, maybe your CV. Definitely, I'm sure they normally ask for CV. But what I'm very sure of is that there's going to be an interview. Yeah, and so you would normally have an interview for that, and then we'll get back to you with.
What does the interview entail, though? What do they typically ask in the interview?
So typically they're looking for your teaching experience, like they're looking for teaching. I mean, it's not a prerequisite. I wouldn't imagine the prerequisite because again, teaching experience, like I mentioned earlier, CAs like GTAs, like graduate teaching assistantship, are also given to master's students who typically are just fresh from the universities, right? And master's students here who pretty much just finished, who graduated in the spring and resumed in the fall. Okay, so they graduated 4 months ago, and 4 months later they're in graduate school, so they don't really have teaching experience and all that. Yeah, but so it might not be so much of an importance, but it's your teaching experience might be good. I mean, thank God for NYC, you probably have teaching experience already. Yeah, so yeah, with that, and if not teaching experience, you probably have some kind of research experience because NYC has helped you, right? And I would imagine that even if you've not finished NYC, that you could tell them that currently I'm actually in the classroom, like I'm teaching currently in the classroom and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think that makes sense. Okay, so and after that you get the funding, right?
Yes, hopefully by the person could get the funding. Yes, and then
hopefully. And then the next stage is the visa application. So we've heard a lot of horror stories about getting visa to the USA. How was your experience? Was it complicated? What did you say?
Okay, I think we're breaking out for a moment, but now I can hear you. Okay, cool.
Okay. So I'm saying that how was your visa experience, right? Because many people tend to share a lot of horror stories about the USA, about how difficult it is, about how you can get funding and scholarships and they're still going to reject you. So you're there right now. So can you just walk us briefly through your own experience and maybe any significant thing that you learned you learned on the journey. Because there might be people here that obviously will follow all these tips and get selected, but then they don't want to get rejected. So we can just touch.
Yeah. That's I mean, that's the next hurdle. So I think when it comes to the US, especially, one thing everyone that's applying should know. I mean, in the course of the application, you would know this. You might come across this. But one thing everybody should know is the fact that for non-immigrant visas, which F1 is a student visa. So for non-immigrant visas, including F1, there's an assumption that everybody that applies for such kind of visas are looking to Japan.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, so that's the assumption. And so, like, everybody that applies for that kind of visa from a particular set of countries, including which glorious Nigeria belongs to. Yeah, so you get to know, because there's like this is a public information. Actually, it's public out there. Yeah. So the burden of proof is on you, the applicant, to show that you are not you're not one of them. I know that's not well. Anyway, but since this is going on YouTube, I would try to censor some things. But the point is, what we know that so the body of proof is on the person, on the applicant, to show that okay, you are not trying to you're not trying to Japan, and all that. So there are three things actually. What is it?
The burden is to prove that you're not trying to relocate, but you're trying to return back after your study.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah. And so there are three things rather that they look out for. And typically the questions that they ask, and this, I have to say that this is my understanding of everything. So this is not like I'm not Ikuma's daughter. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So they are from the videos from the what they call them, the US thing they do, and all that stuff, that what I watched before I went for my application, for my visa interview. Three things to look out for, and right from the point of you filling your visa application form up until the interview day, and even when you get to the point of entry in the States, what they're trying to the three questions they're trying to answer is, first, does this person have enough funding to take him or her through the education, like all that? And so they're trying to, so if you have scholarship, if you have a GA-ship, a fully funded GA-ship, that's not a problem. You have it already, you're good. That question has been answered, yes, right. Now, if the second question is, does this person have stronger ties to their home country, which is Nigeria now, compared to the US? Stronger ties is that, so if you have weaker ties, if the tie between you and Nigeria, if the tie between you and Nigeria is weak, it means you have a stronger tie in the US, which means that you are likely to Japan.
Yeah.
Right, good. You have nothing that is bringing you back home. And so you want to make sure that you have a strong tie home. Right. And then the third thing is that this person is willing to come back to their home country after they finish whatever they're doing over there, which is, in this case, their study. And so these are the three parameters they are trying to. So if you check through the application questions they will ask in the form, and even the type of questions they ask at the window when such a person goes for interview, they're usually around that, around these questions. They might not ask directly, but they'll ask around it. So they'll normally ask for your I-20. From your I-20, they can see if you are funded or if you. And I-20 is, sorry, I'm assuming people know. I-20 is pretty much an immigration document, okay, that the university would give you after they've given you admission. Okay. Yeah, so from that document, the embassy, the visa officer can see if you are funded by the university, fully funded, or if there's still some amount of money you have to pay, or if you'll be sponsoring yourself. Okay. And even before your I-20, before that, you would have probably uploaded your I-20 even while applying for the visa. Yeah, and then to ask questions, pretty much to ask questions like, hey, see, after your program, what's the plan, right? I mean, the obvious wrong answer would be to look for a job in the US. Okay, I hope your answer would be to come back home, because we need people home to build Nigeria. People like Faith that went back to Nigeria. Yes. All right, and come back going back home to develop his country. All right, good. So and then they ask questions like that, and and then of course the ties. I mean, do not lie, because I think why people lie a lot has to do with trying to establish the ties, and so they're trying to say, okay, they're trying to prove that they have sufficient ties with their home country, which is Nigeria. And so even when they have family, they have like close relations here in the country, they're asking kids, do you have family in the US? They're saying no. I mean, if you have family, you should say yes, because I mean, they're going to find out, because there are very strong chances that your name already is in the database, because when your brother or sister or mother or father, when they were applying, in one of their documents, they might have included your name. And so your name is in the database there somewhere. And so when you begin to lie, questions and just a little bit of search can just pop out your name, right? And you don't just get a rejection, you probably get a ban, right, for a period of time, right? So you do not want to be deceptive. I usually advise persons not to be deceptive. If it looks like, say again?
It's not worth it, guys. It's not worth lying.
Yeah, honestly, it's not worth it. And the good thing the US would normally do is they give room for explanation. So, like, if you notice, I mean, from when you're filling the form and all that stuff, if you notice that maybe one of these questions would be a disadvantage to you, say, okay, you have family here already, so that means you have to prove that you need to provide extra proof that you're going to come back home, right? I think you shouldn't lie. I mean, in my case, I was working, I should say that I'm currently on study leave, so in some sense you could say that yes, I'm coming back, I did not lie, right? So I was working with I was lecturing in Nigeria before I came to study. So in my case, it was easy for me to say, yes, I'm going back home, which is pretty much what it is, right? I'm just on leave, I'm going back home. Some persons don't have it straightforward like that. Some persons don't have an active job and all that, but you can explain without lying and all that stuff. Yeah, so that's pretty much for the visa stuff. I would say that it's not a walkover. It's something that persons should really like take their time to prepare for. I mean, there are a lot of things there. Again, I'm censored on what to say. I'm trying to censor a lot of things I'm saying because we have a varied audience, right? But it's not impossible. There's no need to be overly afraid as long as you're not lying. I think that's just the big thing. Do not lie. Do not engage in any fraudulent activity, because if you do, then it's not just going to be rejection. I mean, if they reject, we've had people who have been rejected like 3-4 times and still went ahead to get it the 5th time. In fact, some persons were rejected and the next week they got accepted, right, and all that stuff. So it's person can be rejected for any reasons, and that's not the end of the world, right? But lying just sort of messes it. Yeah, it makes it a lot more complicated. Yeah.
And even this lying thing, guys, even in your application, even in your documents, trying to get admission and funding, please avoid lying. Do not complicate things, especially because there might be cases where you might need to defend it. Even when you get to the school, you lie that you have skills in something that you don't know anything about, and you get there and do you get? So there's no point lying. If you need to lie to get something, I don't think it's worth getting. It's better you develop yourself, work on yourself, and obviously position yourself better, Anyways, I think you've answered most of the questions that people actually ask. That's the funny thing. But I have 2 that are significant. We're going to close very soon, guys. So if you have any questions, just drop it in the chat. but I think you've really done justice to this session, to be honest. But there are two questions here that I think that might be useful. So one of them is, I need advice on how to stay consistent to successful. I've been applying multiple times and I'm getting really discouraged. How do I stay consistent to success?
Yeah, I'm so sorry first for the plenty rejections. I can relate, and even though I can relate, it's doesn't mean that I understand what you feel, because our conditions, our situations are very, very peculiar. So again, I'm sorry for that. I really hope you are where you are right now, you're getting some kind of support through all this. But I also think that maybe, again, I don't know the specifics of what you've tried and what you've not tried, but maybe a very good step would be reviewing the kind of schools you apply to, depending on the program you are going for, right? Like, you could review the kind of schools you are applying to. Maybe you want to try, and this is an interesting thing, just go on, like, if you check the US map, you're going to see, like, there about all the states. In all the states, they've pretty much got universities in almost all the states. And when I mean universities, I'm not where 2 or 3 are gathered. I'm talking about like a lot of universities that you do not even know about, and they offer funding opportunities, right? So the flip side of you getting those rejections is that you pretty much know the basics of everything we've spoken about today. So all you need to do is just work on the edges right now. And so what you want to do is probably visit some of these states, especially those colder states that people don't want to go to, right? Because they're like the weather. Like, visit those colder states, check out what are the universities here, like all the universities here, and just go one after the other. Forget about the popular ones. Go to the ones that are probably not very popular. Check them out. Are they offering your course? Is offering your course? Is there someone out there who is like interested in all that? One other thing I would tell you is this. I was not very sure if I should share this online. I mean, if I shouldn't share it, I'm sure, thank God there's an editing phase. You can take it out. Yeah, you can take it out. But one of the things I noticed is that, I don't know how familiar you are with in Nigeria we have lecturer 1, lecturer 2, assistant lecturer, and all that. Over here, when you just join the academia as a lecturer, as a professor, you are called an assistant professor. Okay, and usually such a person would have finished their postdoctoral program or the likes, and now are assistant professors. And they usually, not always, I don't know if it's always, but most of the time, they come with what they call startup funds. So the university or the department provides them with some startup funds. It means, and so it means that they have funding to bring in students. Okay, so assistant professors, it means that they have funding to bring in students. Now, the other thing is that they're also under immense pressure to perform, because they are non-tenure, or they are non-tenure, or so they've not been tenured yet. It means, like in Nigeria, what we say confirmed, right? They've not been confirmed. But when they to be confirmed, they have to show some level of success, career success, and all that stuff. So it includes graduating a number of students, like show advancement in research and all that stuff. And so they have money, they have pressure, they want students, right? So that's probably what you should look out for. So maybe you're looking out for assistant professors in those schools that are probably working around what you want to work in, that kind of thing, and then send them emails. And maybe they have some space for you. It's less likely to get a space. I mean, you can still get in full professors' labs. Those professors that are already full professors, they're already tenured, they already have students and all that. You can still get into their labs, but it's not very common and all that. They're the ones that will most likely reply your email with, "Oh, I'm retiring in the next 2 years. I don't think I can get you, or there's no space." Yeah, and all that stuff. I mean, yeah. So, but try that in all those smaller universities and see if that sort of helps. Yeah, I don't know if I can think of any more hacks right now. But yeah, and again, I don't know the kind of feedback you might have gotten, like if negative, like if there's feedback on your application or on spaces. So if they said, hey, you had a great application, it's just that we don't have spaces, okay, that's not on you, right? But if they're responding to your application or to something that's from your end, then maybe you want to like talk to some people within your network, or that can probably help find some things here and there to help you. Yeah, but I think you shouldn't give up, because you already have the experience already and you're closer than any other person that has not even started. Yeah, so I think you shouldn't give up.
Yeah, for you to even be in sessions like this, it means that you're constantly learning. I don't even know how many sessions you've attended, how many scholars you've spoken to, but I think the fact that you're putting in a lot of effort is already it's an indication that you're close, as you have said. So I think that's it.
And if I may just through this other thing, I know on that thing might be maybe the financial responsibility or financial stuff when it comes to paying application fees and all that stuff. I usually tell people, if not, I didn't know this. So this is one of the things I didn't know. I just found out when I came here, right? That it's actually application free week. Like all my years, I never knew there was application free week. So some of these schools actually give application free week. It's not very common to those ambitious schools, but some of these other safe schools give application free week. And you could go for them. And even the schools that don't even give application free weeks, you could just like send an email to the admission office or the international admission office and tell them, hey, see, you don't have money. We are looking to apply. You're wondering if they could give you an application fee waiver. Most schools are happy to give it, right? Most schools are happy to give it because they want you to apply. Yeah. And if they say no, you tried. But more often than not, you're going to get an application fee waiver. So I hope that's something that you'll get. And so if you have it, at least that helps with you applying to.
And also broaden your options. Like you said, I don't know if you apply to maybe only scholarships or maybe the same kind of competitive scholarships, but obviously broaden your options. Explore not scholarships that are not as popular. One way that I always use to find opportunities is on LinkedIn. I will just type, I just got this funding, and it brings out a lot of different kinds of scholarships. So you can write scholarship funding, postgraduate opportunities. You don't have to apply to all the popular funding opportunities. And like you said, you don't have to apply to only ambitious schools. So just keep diversifying, re-strategizing, and broadening the amount of the type and number of schools you're applying to. And I know that eventually you're going to share your test. Okay.
Yeah. Twitter. So there's something called Twitter. Yeah. So there's and Twitter is less formal. It's people are happy. Well, people are not happy. Well, I don't know. Not a lot of people are happy there, but people are happy to respond, right? Okay. So but yeah, Twitter is great because there's this section of Twitter called, how you have relationship Twitter and all that. You have academic Twitter, and people are usually, because everybody wants to show that they know one thing or the other. So you could actually and so from there, in fact, right there, once you just click on the bio, you can see that PhD student at so university, assistant lecturer, assistant professor at this, and you can just go through that tweet sometimes, and they're like, we have this position here, or even if you have that position, you can just email them. Like you can just check on them, like, hey, I'm looking at this. So do you want to do you have options? And then they're able to So Twitter is a great place. So actually,
and social media is such a powerful tool, but people don't really explore it, because if you go to the same website that everybody's doing and the same type of scholarships that everybody's applying for, you're making your experience a little more complicated. Now, I'm not saying don't apply for those things, don't get me wrong, apply. But like you said, you need to have safe schools and safe opportunities as well. Broaden your options so that even if you don't fall on the top, at least you fall on another one. And depends on what your goals are, really. I don't think any of these schools are bad. You're still going to get an amazing education, way better than a lot of schools in, I would not say the country, but yeah. Anyways, there's a particular question here that's been coming up. I think it's the final question because you've answered literally about 23 questions here, but you answered everything. That's the amazing. But anyways, there's so basically lots of people keep asking about the types of schools. So how do they know the right schools? Are they kind of schools that they should avoid? How do they choose the right schools that align with their goals? What should they look out for when choosing the schools? Like that's what the questions are, about 5, but just around how do we know the right schools for us? Or what schools should we run away from? Those kind of things. So
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Okay, all right. Just a minute. Let me think. All right. Okay, so I think that just like it brings me back to the safe and ambitious schools, and then bring back into GRE, and I'll just say a little thing about GRE. The reason I would encourage you to write GRE is because it would increase your options.
yeah.
Okay, so like now supposing you have 5,000 people applying in a particular year, and 5,000 of them don't have GRE. And 5,000 of them are hoping to apply to 300 schools or 20 schools that waive GRE. It means 5,000 of you have to go and struggle for spaces in these 20 schools, right? You're gonna have a problem, right? But if you just write GRE, it means you can go to that other one school or 3 schools that don't mind or that insist that you must write GRE. It means you have a stronger chance to compete there. You get, and so I would normally encourage you to write GRE. That just sort of broadens your option to go for. I don't know that this is school to run from, and I'll tell you why. Of course, there are schools to run from, but I'll tell you why I don't think anybody in Nigeria should run from your school. Because you, right now, the priority is that you want to. I was watching something on YouTube, on LinkedIn. I was also on LinkedIn yesterday, and they're asking the guy what is the definition of JAPA, and he said it's entrepreneurial spirit. All right, so where you export yourself and where you export your product and export yourself. All right, good. So yeah, so pretty much for anybody in Nigeria, more than, I mean, of course, you want to get education, but also you want to get some life experiences in a safer place, at least for a period of time before you come back. So I would say go for any school that is giving you funding, right?
Yeah.
Like I'll go for any school that's giving you funding. I'm very confident that you're going to like the school because it's going to be better than most of the experiences in Nigeria. But then, even if you hate the school, there's always an option for transfer, right? It's a little bit more complicated than that, but you can actually transfer. It means you have to go again and hustle for funding and all that stuff. But you can always transfer your program, okay? Or even start again. So let's suppose that you come to school and then the department of the school is very chaotic and you're having issues. You're already in the country, right? You could finish up in 1 year, but then transfer. You're in the country. You could get admission again and transfer. But if the same question was asked to me by someone already in the state, I would say that you want to look out for a very supportive advisor. It's very important. If you're going to be spending 5 years of your life in a program, you want to make sure you're spending 5 years of your life with people that at least are supportive. You don't want to be in a very I don't use toxic because toxic is a buzzword, but yes, you don't want to be in a toxic environment, right? You want, because PhD by itself is very demanding, right? It's very stressful and all that, and so you want all the support you can get. So having a very good supervisor, if sometimes is better than being in a very famous university. You get, because at the end of the day, for PhD, your interaction will come down to just you and your supervisor and your faculty and your research committee, right? And so if you have the right people around you, that pretty much is better than being in a very famous place where you consistently feel put down and you don't even enjoy the whole journey, So, well, pretty much, I would say for anyone in Nigeria who's just looking to move, there isn't any school that is that terrible, because over here, welfare it's very important. Okay, it's very serious. They actually take it very seriously, and so no one is looking to victimize you or any of those kind of things. I think it's not very common, right? And so I said there's some other way you're looking at it, but then you should be able to apply to any of the schools. But look, now identifying those schools would be like, just like I mentioned earlier, going to all those places where people normally would not go to. Some places are really, really cold, like they are really, really cold and all that. And even the Americans, right, do not even like fancy staying there, right, because it's really, really cold and all that. So, but I mean, you could decide to do it. You decide to go to those kind of schools and apply to those kind of schools. Also, there are smaller schools in every state that still give funding. Okay, there are smaller schools in every state that give funding. Just go Google the different universities there, read up about them, and like I said earlier during this session, their emails or their websites works, right? All their websites, they work, right? And like what you're seeing there is actually true. Okay, so like just to put it comes down to searching. Really, it comes down to searching. This is one of the hardest part of the job of this journey, right? It's you coming down to searching for that university. And once you hit, you kind of know when you found it. You kind of know. Yeah, I don't know. Did I do justice to that question, or is there some part?
Definitely. There's a final question in the chat box, and it's from Ayo, and it says, "Hello everyone. What can someone like me that cold mails professors without a single one of them replying?"
Okay. Hi Ayo. Sorry about that. I mean, I kind of feel like we sort of touched this earlier, but then just to reiterate, what I think you could do first is to maybe review the time you send the emails. I wouldn't know the time you send the emails. You want to ensure that you're sending it within the working hours of the professor of the department, of the state, of the nation. And I'll tell you why that's important, because we have different holidays in the States, okay, that they're not global holidays, if you get what I mean. So there are days, maybe you send your email on a day when everyone is out of school, okay, because it's a public holiday year, so no one is in school. It means that your email is at the bottom, and then by the time the professor comes back, everything is just, he probably or she probably will not be able to get to your email. That could be a reason, right? It also could be the time you send your email. If you're sending the email like towards the evening or towards the end of work and all that stuff, or maybe on weekends, you shouldn't send emails to anybody on weekends. I hope you don't do that. But yeah, like you shouldn't send emails to anybody on weekends. In fact, I would prefer you don't send to anybody. You don't send email to people on Friday when it's past 12. After 12 on Friday, you shouldn't send emails to people, because people are really just wanting to close for the day and just jump into the weekend. You shouldn't do that, right? Except they tell you to, obviously. Yeah, but typically I would advise that anywhere between 9 and 11 would be a very good time. I don't say 12 because I know that by 12 most people go for their lunch between 12 and 2, and so if you send an email by 12, I'm hungry, I want to go for lunch, I'm trying to catch up with somebody, like as minute as all these things might sound, they might just be the reason actually not getting a response. Just timing is very, very important here, okay, because of course lunch is very important here. People actually take lunch very importantly here. Yeah, another thing you might want to look at would be to send reminders. So it's genuinely possible that they miss your emails even after doing all this, right? Probably just send a reminder a week after you've sent it, and just like, hey, see, I mean, 1 or 2 reminders should be fine. If they don't respond, maybe they're actually not interested in, then move to the next person. But try reminders and see if they can respond, right? And then the third thing is what I mentioned earlier, which is like working with references, right? So if the person does not respond, maybe you should you should send an email to the graduate coordinator, and just say, hey, hello, like, this is what I'm interested in. Wondering if there's anybody in the department who is looking for a student for next year. And once he says, okay, yes, go for this person, just take a name like that. Just take his name and be like, hey, CEO, I chatted with this person, and this person said that you might be looking for whatever for next session. Do you think I'm a best fit? Fine, attach my CV. Oh, and that's important. So when you send your cold mail, just include your CV, include your transcript. That might work. I had to do that, so I included my CV and transcript when I sent my cold mail, just because, if they are busy and the little time, if they are able to open your email, it's important they just see everything they want, right, and all that. Then we also spoke about how that you want to make your cold mail attractive enough, like, flaunt yourself. Don't be humble. Okay, like, don't be humble. If you don't lie, don't be cocky, but be confident, and don't be unnecessarily humble. I think that's important. And honestly, I hope that you get to share a testimony soon of one of these working for you. But I think probably one of these should work if you're not doing them already.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Does anybody else have any question before we close? Because I think that you've really answered a lot of the available questions. Anyways, in the absence of that, what would be your final words for anyone watching this and wants to be in your shoes by September next year? So somebody that wants to ensure that exactly 1 year from now, I'm going to be in the United States of America studying a PhD or a master's.
Okay. Well, for starters, I hope they come before September, because if they come by September, they would have missed like 2 weeks of lecture. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I honestly would. So there's just this singleness of mind that is important when applying. You just have to, and I'm going to just probably speak from what maybe worked for me. You just have to put in, like, that period of applying, you just have to be single-mindedly committed to it. I usually chat and play with people, but it's true, it works. That if you dedicate like 3 months and this is application season, okay? So if you dedicate August, so August is gone already, so let's say September, October, November to applying, you will be here by next year. Like, there's a very strong chance you'll be, and when I mean like committed, especially this is for Lagosians. Lagos can be very distracting, like, in the sense of stress, like angry bosses and all that, even if you work in an office where they allow you to like stay back and all that, if you go to your system, you get, instead of being in traffic, you can stay back and spend maybe 2 hours, 1 hour, just focus on, like, solidly focus, forget about your phone and all that, just focus on this stuff. Do it consistently for 3 months and all that stuff. You will cross over, because you see, the funding is available. It's competitive, yeah, but it's available. They want you, because just like I explained earlier, you're actually working for the university. You're having the university run. Okay, so it's not as if they're doing you a favor. That this is a symbiotic relationship. You're also working to improve the university, so they actually want you get. So I think you should just ensure that you are single-mindedly involved, like committed to making this work. Like, sacrifice whatever you have to sacrifice. Okay, well, sensibly or apparently, but like, just be committed to making this work for just 3 months, because once the end of November, applications start closing by December and all that stuff. So just stay committed for 3 months, and then things should work out. And for me personally, the God factor plays a very big role for me. So I remember, and this is funny, but when I was waiting for the school right now to get back to me, one of the things I did was, there's this beautiful arc. It's a gate, but it's got this arc on it, and I went on their Instagram page Oh, by the way, before I got admission, I'd watched all the videos on. Like I was pretty much in the school. I'd watched all the videos on YouTube and all that. I was like, this school I'm going. Like I was working temporarily in Nigeria. You could do anything to me, and I was not there. Like this was before I got the admission, before I even got the visa or anything. But I had left already. I was confessing faith, not this faith, but I was confessing faith. You know what I mean? So like, faith didn't get the joke. Okay, but all right, but okay.
But yeah.
Yeah. So I was confessing faith, and I took a screenshot. I remember on my phone, and each time I got scared, I'm like, my God, will this select me or not? And all that. I'll just look at the gate, and I just picture myself walking through the gate. Like the first day I got on campus, I went back to that gate and I took a real picture in front of the gate. Now I'll still take one when I leave, right? But like for me, the God factor is very important. I had to like literally confess myself into crossing over. Yeah, because for me, I had spent a lot of time trying to apply and consistently getting rejection. Sometimes I get the admissions, but I just don't get the funding and all that. I know how frustrating it can be. I know how like depressing and how stuck one can feel, you know, being there. And so when you've done all that you can do, then you've got the opportunity. Sorry about that.
That was so scary.
Yeah. So yeah. So when you've done all you can do, just give God enough room to do his part. I think that's just important.
I think that's it. Thank you so much for your time today. I learned so much from you. I'm sure everybody here learned a whole lot from you. And we're looking forward to, maybe having future sessions with you and maybe just watching your progress and your success and you flying. And I'm really rooting for everyone that listened or everyone that watched this to the end. I hope that by this time next year, maybe you would also be a guest on this session, looking out advice and sharing about your testimony. For everybody that has applied multiple times, please do not give up. You're very close to your testimony. Keep believing and visualizing, and you'll be fine. Thank you so much, and bye.